Right now, there's a part of your brain actively sabotaging every positive change you try to make in your life. It doesn't matter if you want to start exercising, change careers, or even just rearrange your living room. This ancient survival mechanism kicks in and floods your system with fear, doubt, and resistance. What's shocking is that this isn't a character flaw or lack of willpower. It's actually a sophisticated neural network that once kept our ancestors alive, but now keeps us trapped in patterns that no longer serve us. And once you understand exactly how this system works and why it's so terrified of change, you'll finally have the tools to work with it instead of against it. Let's look at what this resistance actually is and why it exists in the first place. Think of it like walking through a forest. There is a path you have taken many times before. It is muddy in some places. It winds around obstacles. It takes longer than it probably should. But you know every turn. You know where the roots stick up and where the ground dips. You could walk it without thinking. Now imagine someone shows you a new path. It is shorter. It has better light. The ground is even. By every measure, it is the better route. But it is unfamiliar. You would need to pay attention to every step. You would need to make decisions about which way to go. You would need to stay alert the entire time. Most of us would choose the muddy path, not because we prefer mud, but because it requires less effort to navigate. Our minds work the same way with habits and routines. The familiar pattern feels automatic. The new pattern feels like work. This is why we return to the same morning routine even when it leaves us rushed. It is why we respond the same way in arguments even when we know it makes things worse. It is why we avoid difficult tasks in the same predictable order. The old way is the well-worn path. It does not ask us to think. It just guides us along. The part of us that resists change is not evaluating whether the old way serves us. It is only checking whether the old way is known. If the answer is yes, that part of us will quietly steer us back toward it. It treats the familiar as safe, even when the familiar is uncomfortable. This happens because our minds are designed to save energy. Every new decision, every unfamiliar step, every moment of uncertainty requires mental effort. The brain avoids that effort whenever possible. It defaults to what it already knows how to do. That is the well-worn path at work. We see this pattern everywhere. Someone decides to start exercising. The first few days require planning and motivation, but after a while it either becomes automatic or it fades away entirely. If it fades, it is not because the person failed. It is because the protective part of the mind kept offering the old routine as the easier option. And eventually, the old routine won. The same thing happens with how we talk to ourselves, how we handle stress, how we structure our days. We build a path by repeating it. Once the path is built, it becomes the default. Changing the path means creating a new one from scratch while the old one is still right there, easy and familiar. This is not a flaw. It is just how our minds work. The well-worn path will always feel easier than the new one. That is the pattern we are observing. Once you notice it, you see it in almost everything we do. We can see this pattern most clearly in the moment we decide to do something new. We commit to exercising in the morning. We decide to speak up in meetings. We plan to stop checking our phone first thing when we wake up. The decision feels real. We mean it. Then we try to follow through. And almost immediately, we feel a quiet discomfort. It is not pain. It is not fear in the usual sense. It is more like a low hum of unease. Something inside us notices that we are off the familiar path, and it does not like it. This is the protective part taking over. It starts offering alternatives. Maybe tomorrow would be better. Maybe this new habit is not really who we are. Maybe the old way worked fine, and we are overthinking things. These thoughts do not feel like sabotage. They feel reasonable. They feel like common sense. That is because the protective part is not trying to hurt us. It is trying to guide us back to safety. And to this part of us, safety means the known routine. It means the well-worn path. It does not matter if that path makes us unhappy or stuck. What matters is that we have survived it before. The stronger the change we are trying to make, the louder this voice becomes. A small adjustment, like drinking water before coffee, might barely register. But a big shift, like changing careers or ending a long relationship, triggers the protective part at full volume. It will offer every reason to stay put. It will remind us of every risk. It will make the old way seem suddenly appealing, even if we were miserable in it. This is why small changes often stick while big transformations feel impossible. The protective part can tolerate a slight detour, but a completely new path feels like a threat. So it works harder to pull us back. We are not failing when we feel this resistance. We are simply experiencing two parts of ourselves in conflict. One part wants growth. The other part wants safety. Both are trying to help. They just have different definitions of what help looks like. Once we notice this pattern, we stop blaming ourselves for the resistance. We see it for what it is. It is not weakness. It is not a character flaw. It is just the mind doing what it was designed to do, keeping us on the path it knows. So we all have a part of us that fears change. It values safety over growth. It prefers the muddy path we know over the sunny path we do not. This is not a flaw to fix. It is a pattern to recognize. The well-worn path will always feel easier. That is just how our minds work. But noticing the resistance when it appears is enough to begin creating space for new paths. Change is not about overpowering the protective part. It is about slowly showing it that the new path is safe too. And if you'd like to keep exploring these patterns, the well-worn paths we follow without noticing, you're welcome to stay. This notebook is simply a place where we observe them together. Until next time, keep observing.